Elsinore, published by Golden Glitch Studios in July of 2019. Looking at a timeline, this places its release after some pretty steep competition. Streets of Rogue, Gorn, and it was soon followed by Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. It's no wonder this title got buried by the ones around it. In fact, I hadn't even heard of this game or knew what it was about. I bought it on a whim because I saw a Reddit post about an Easter egg in Outer Wilds and thought, ooh, what could that be? I'll give a quick overview of the game before diving into the story and, my thoughts and feelings. If at any point it sounds like something you'd be interested in playing, then please go and buy the game for yourself. And if you do, I'd love to know what your thoughts are if you give it a shot. So come on back and leave a comment. I've also added chapters to the video, so if you have to click off, you should be able to find your way back easily enough. Alright, we all good? Ready for me to start? Then let's go. Elsinore takes place in Elsinore, a cute little city in Denmark, famous for its cobbled streets, actions to protect the Denmark Jewish population in World War II, and for Kronborg Castle, the inspiration for the setting of the famous Shakespearean tragedy, Hamlet. Okay, enough history lessons. You're watching this to learn about a game, not for Danish sightseeing information. What even is this game about? Well, you play as Ophelia, lady-in-waiting and former love interest to young Prince Hamlet. Awakening from a nightmare, Ophelia had a terrible vision: the deaths of many of the people in the castle around her. It's now up to you and your wits to see if you can save everyone, or will you let a terrible fate come to pass? Off the bat, I really like this concept. This concept honestly reminds me of a game called Overboard by Inkle Limited. It's a whodunit, aboard a boat. The big twist of the game being, you done it. In order to get the best ending, you need to learn the passengers' schedules, secrets, and routines to make sure you can get away with the murder. Personally, I think it's a cruel bit of irony. Elsinore asks you to use these same skills to save everyone, instead of, dooming somebody. Alright, I will do my best to avoid spoiling too much in this next section, particularly around the mid-game, but if you want to stay spoiler-free, this is the point where you may want to jump ship. If you want to click off the video now, I understand. In fact, I'll go ahead and even leave a chapter right here, so you can come back if you do. Last chance. Okay. The story of Elsinore follows that of the play of Hamlet very closely, so if you know the general plot, you can even piece some of the information together on your own. There are a few differences here and there. Instead of a full troupe of performing actors, there's just a single performer, Peter Quince. If you know your Shakespeare, you know that this is a cute little reference to the director from another Shakespearean play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. Instead of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern being two men, they're ladies. And in fact, you're even able to visit outside the walls of the castle, into the castle town. You can even see Petruchio and Othello, two other characters from other Shakespearean plays. Just, cute little nods and asides. Since you control her, Ophelia is able to be much more involved in the grand scheme of things, instead of her usually pretty passive self, where she'd just be watching events from the sidelines without really changing anything too major. Spoiler warning for the plot of Hamlet. Or, The Lion King if you're unfamiliar with either of the tales. The story is told from Ophelia's perspective, and from the get-go, young Prince Hamlet is acting very deranged. On top of Hamlet's odd behavior, even the guards are acting strange. Makes sense, they only recently just talked to a ghost. Hamlet is also going wild with the knowledge of his uncle murdering his father. And eventually, Ophelia even has to grieve and react to the murder of her dad in the same way, as best she can. Things eventually really come to a head when you reach the part of the story where Ophelia gets murdered. Wait a sec. What? Am I misreading this? No, that's not right. Ophelia drowns herself in a fit of madness after Hamlet kills Polonius, right? Look, I know the story of Hamlet. Do the makers of this game not realize? She's not murdered. And, well, I guess I'm working with a tighter time limit than I thought. I really thought I would have a bit more time to change things, but with Ophelia dead, I guess nothing I did really mattered. Huh. Oh well, at least the game was pretty short and easy to get through. Maybe I just missed something, so Now that I know that, I'm just going to relaunch this game and, what's this? Why am I not starting at the beginning of the game? Ophelia's still in her bed. That's not right. Why does she know what Hamlet's about to say? That's right. You get more than just one chance to save everyone. You're stuck in a time loop. Now, I hope you're ready to spend 12 minutes on the edge of tomorrow in the Outer Wilds, because you're going to have to figure out how to not only survive, but save as many people as you can in this time loop. ReZero. The game is designed around two main mechanics, the journal and the timeline. Journal keeps track of any hints, leads, and character bios that you gather throughout the loops. As you can probably tell from something called the journal, this helps to actually organize the useful clues and hints so you aren't spending 15 minutes trying to just follow up on a throwaway line that you thought, hey, maybe this is going to be important. There were some times when I would spend a few loops making small talk and just seeing what interactions would change based on what I said. Every now and then I would just say a random throwaway line and it eventually would lead to a character's death. So I had to eventually start keeping a notebook of what phrases led to people, just getting oofed. The timeline mechanic is also heavily utilized. Things that happen naturally or by your interference are added to a timeline, one with a backlog that steadily becomes more and more packed with events and interactions as your game continues. For convenience sake, after your first loop, you also unlock the fast forwarding mechanic, which is really nice, even if it does make Ophelia just look straight up zooted. On top of all of that, there's even the map in the corner. Obviously, a map's helpful, but this shows where the characters are, as well as highlighting any events going on. You're even able to target a specific character you want to rush to. Very helpful whenever things get hectic. After a few more loops, you unlock one of your final abilities, Terminate Attempt. If you couldn't tell from the name, this is your restart button. You also find out pretty quickly you're not the only person with knowledge of the time loop. Peter Quince, the lone thespian, also knows that he's in a time loop. If you're like me, that means that you started doing just a little bit of cheering. You're finally no longer alone. You have an ally that's able to cooperate with you and even help with a few of your plans. He's able to perform different plays at your request. Based on bits of gossip or rumors around the castle. Instead of following Hamlet's script, he chooses to help you with your plans instead. It's really nice. Also, a quick side note, I really love Quince's design. The developers mentioned that they were heavily inspired by Majora's Mask, and you can really see it when he makes some of his expressions. I'll link some of the articles that I used for research in the description, in case you're curious and want to see some more. To me, I think he looks like the Happy Mask salesman's less polygonal brother. Now, if only there was a way that you could make Ophelia fight back with magical spit bubbles. Jesus, did I really write that? It becomes pretty obvious very quickly that Quince clearly knows more than he lets on. But not without merit. He even offers to help change the story a little bit to make sure you don't have to repeatedly deal with the same tedious parts. It's such a unique take on a time loop game, it's honestly really refreshing. Instead of your player character having to make all of these changes, you can rely on somebody else with the knowledge of this time loop to help you out. It would be like if in Outer Wilds, if Gabbro was able to do something other than just, sitting in his hammock, blowing on his oboe. Do something! The gameplay loop is honestly pretty simple to explain. Ophelia wakes up, encounters a problem, spins a few loops looking for a solution, then dies, or she resolves it. Like I said earlier, I don't want to give away all that this game holds, which is why I'm being especially vague. So please go ahead and pick up Elsinore if you're interested in finding everything out for yourself. Unfortunately, despite my best wishes, I can't address some of my biggest criticisms for this game without spoiling the ending. There will be a warning when that happens, but please just be aware. Alright, on to the thing I really didn't want to do. The critical section of this video. I've talked about this game's positives as much as I can. it's time to look at what drags it down. Firstly, there's no way around it. The game is pretty slow. The original Hamlet clocks in around 30,000 words, or about 4 hours without intermission. Elsinore probably doesn't come anywhere close to that word count, but you'll certainly have a lot of reading to do. It's more like a visual novel instead of a point-and-click game. On top of that, I played Elsinore in a handful of hour-long sessions just because I could feel my concentration struggling around the 50-minute mark. Keeping track of the information and parsing through some of the dialogue was a challenge, and I had to do my best just to keep up with it. I had mentioned in an earlier section that I had to keep notes on what I had said and the result of it. Well, I've already told you about the journal that updates as you play through the game, but there's no in-game record of what dialogue leads to what outcome. It's up to you, the player, to do that work. Honestly, I think an in-game notebook just to keep track of things would have been a game changer. I will say, I do see why they didn't do that. Ophelia shouldn't be able to keep physical notes between time loops, but it's a real struggle to keep track of what changes for every single piece of dialogue. In addition to keeping track of what I chose to say, I also had to keep track of what dialogue options I've chosen. Not only is there no in-game tracker for if you've already said something to somebody, sometimes their responses will change based on the events that have already happened. So I felt like I had to say every single dialogue option multiple times across multiple loops. Another piece of criticism falls onto the dialogue system again. Sometimes you're simply unable to tell someone information that you think they would find important. And I don't want anyone to hear this and think that I'm saying, oh, the developers didn't put in enough effort or enough work. No, I know just how much work that would be. And obviously not every character would be interested in hearing about whatever skeletons your father has in his closet. But there were definitely moments where it made the game feel a little bit railroaded, and I'll be honest, there were a few times when my immersion was broken. And finally, my last criticism is one that I'll have to further elaborate on in the next section of this video. Again, I will be talking about the ending of this game, so I repeat, this is your final warning if you want to experience Elsinore without knowing all the minutiae or all of the details of what you're jumping into. Throughout my discussion, I've talked a lot about the beginning of this game and, some of the later parts, but I've chosen to leave a lot of the middle game out. If you've gotten to this point, been thoroughly spoiled about some of the biggest twists of mechanics, and you still want to play this game because you think you'll enjoy it, just please buy the game. Support Golden Glitch Studios, support work that goes towards making weird and unusual games like this one. Okay. When you reach the ending of this game, you'll know it. You collect a unique item that will then let you choose your ending. Once you have chosen your ending, the game deletes your save data. As I was playing through, I got 3 different endings. The game has 13. On my first playthrough, I was wanting to go through and see them all. But after having to go through this game even more times, I was just tired of things. I really do wish I could have backed up my save data or done something, because it's not hard to blitz through parts of this game. My engagement had just taken a huge hit. Alright, I'm going to go over the 3 endings that I had the patience to earn. Ending 1. This one is the default ending of the play and the game. Ophelia dies and her body is found in the lake behind the castle. Really, without too much intervention or variation, Ophelia's just given up. This is the ending that you get if you do nothing. This is an ending you can still get even if you rage against the machine. This ending is almost guaranteed on your first playthrough, the one where you give up and resign to your fate, where you choose to sacrifice your struggle for the relief of indecision. Ending 2 is what I thought would be the best ending. I had even mentioned it much earlier on in this video. The ending where nobody dies.
Just this once! Everybody lives!
That was my goal. I wanted to keep this from turning into a tragedy. This ending is honestly pretty complicated, and I spent more than a few loops trying to make it work before it all, fell into place. You have to follow a pretty convoluted plan. You need to rekindle the friendship between Hamlet and Laertes, warn your father of Hamlet's meeting with his mother and of the poison in Claudius' chambers, and somehow delay the incoming advance of Fortinbras's forces. Finally, everyone is safe within the castle walls, but you know that war is coming. And Claudius, he's not a benevolent enough ruler for things to end peacefully. He is vindictive, he is mean, and he wants violence. Norway will be marching on Elsinore soon, but at least you're all alive. You can witness the end together. The second ending I got, you had to sacrifice everyone's peace for your survival. How dare you? And finally, ending 3. This is the one that, after ending 2, I had hoped this would be the golden ending, the happy one. Once you've figured everything out and every piece starts falling into place, maybe you could figure out how to break this time loop. Honestly, I just wanted Ophelia to set aside the cycle, to break the chain. This ending is reliant on a bit of information you earn right before you get the final object to finish this game. Peter Quince is not your ally. This friendly playmaster has truly been the puppet master this entire time. Former King Hamlet was also a victim of this time loop. Quince has been holding the castle hostage in a never-ending time loop to torture this family for entertainment. For an uncertain amount of time, it could be years, it could be decades, it could be centuries. The people of Elsinore have been trapped. Once Ophelia learns of this, she hatches a plot with the Mad Prince and the Lost King, both Hamlets coming together. Ophelia hatches a plan with them to wrench control away from Quince. She sets up a plan to catch him off guard. It's up to you to keep the puppet master from ever picking up the strings again. In front of everyone, Ophelia interrupts the performance. She spills the truth about Quince, about everything that's happened, and the ghost of Hamlet backs you up. Finally, and mercifully, Quince lets down his guard, and Queen Gertrude is able to slip a knife right between his ribs. Obviously, this shunts you back to your bed, and you have time for one last loop. Upon waking up, things are different. Everyone that you come across is happy. It's no longer the start that you're used to. There's so many things different. Not only are they happy, there's a celebration going on. Everyone's so excited. They're all so joyous. It's all so fake. This doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like a mockery. Ophelia goes and tries talking to some of the other people, but there's soon a turn. Once Ophelia gets some distance, people just start dropping dead around her. Here's the truth. Quince is still around, and he's pissed. This is not going to be the final loop. You're back to square one, and King Hamlet has one last bit of advice for you. It's a warning. There is no happy ending. There are no good endings. In the other choices Ophelia can pursue, there's romance, prestige. Honestly, she can even find a way to get a connection to the throne, but it's all temporary. If you take any of these choices, then Quince wins. He gets to pass the book on to someone else, and the cycle of torment starts all over again. Ophelia is not his first victim, and she's almost certainly not going to be his last. And I know that there is more to this game. I just don't know if I have it in me to try and grind out the other endings. If the game makers wanted to make me feel like Ophelia, trapped in a time loop, I'm lucky to have this escape. Unlike Ophelia, I don't need to sacrifice my reality for joy. I want to rate this game objectively, give it a strong score of 8.5 out of 10. Tell everyone it's the best narrative-driven point-and-click game I've ever played. But I'm not going to do that. I want this series to be one where I'm candid, where I'm genuine. I want to tell you my real thoughts, and I'm not going to hide behind a score because I'm scared of backlash or disagreement. Despite all my kind words for every bit of praise I had for this game, there's just a building sense of doneness. For me, I'd give Elsinore a 6.3 out of 10. It has a gorgeous art direction, a strong cast of characters I wanted to see succeed. I really wanted to save everyone that I could. Progress also felt great. I got to see some of the parts of the characters that they were wanting to keep secret. I really was driven to uncover all of the mysteries that this castle held, that the people inside try to keep your eyes away from. But I'm a sucker for a happy ending. And Hamlet's a tragedy. And a tragedy can't have one of those. Any happiness Ophelia gets is fleeting and temporary. Ophelia is facing a Sisyphean task, and I can do nothing but watch and pray that one day her boulder will stop rolling. I just want her to become strong enough and for her will to outlast her torment. And unfortunately, there's a reason we need to imagine Sisyphus happy. It's unlikely you'll ever get to see it. My time in Elsinore may have only spanned for a few days, but I think it'll be a little bit more firm in my memories. Who knows? I may come back to this game in the future. I'm gonna be a different person. Maybe I'll be a bit more patient, a bit more wise. But for now, I think I'm fine closing this chapter and placing it back on the shelf in my library. Till next time. I hope you've enjoyed the first episode of the series, Cleaning Out the Library. If you have any suggestions on how I can improve or games that I should play, please leave them in the comments below. Any tips or recommendations would be appreciated too. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you despised it, a thumbs down works too. All I ask is that you also tell me where I can improve in the comments. If you were a fan and you'd like to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe. For my next video, Elsinore was a lot. I think I'll have to go to something that's not as heavy in Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Till next time.